I'm Zoe Dillhunty-Light, and I have a feast, nay, a banquet for you today, as we at Eurogamer got an exclusive interview with Hidetaka Miyazaki of FromSoft. We got the chance to pick his brains about the new Elden Ring DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree, and the Bloodborne remaster we're all craving. FromSoft boss Hidetaka Miyazaki told our deputy news editor, Ed Nightingale, that this is the biggest expansion the company has ever worked on. Judging from the trailer, as many suspected, Shadow of the Erdtree will follow the story of Miquella, Malenia's brother. There's also mention of the Realm of Shadow accessed through Miquella's withered arm that Mog was guarding, perhaps hinting at the new area we'll all be exploring. Further, we see a variety of new environments: haunted grasslands, fiery caverns, mystical ruins, as well as some magnificently terrifying new bosses. Let's get started with the interview, shall we? If you're wondering, Miyazaki confirmed to us that Game of Thrones author George R.R. Martin has not provided fresh material. As for George's involvement, essentially it is the same as it was with the base game, said Miyazaki. The DLC Shadow of the Erdtree is based on one part of that original mythos that he penned for us. It's not a brand new mythos that he's written specifically for Shadow of the Erdtree. He has not created something new which informed the design of the DLC. It's simply another part of the original story that we thought fit to tell as a new expansion. So, what can we expect from Shadow of the Erdtree? Compared with previous games, Miyazaki said this DLC is our largest expansion to date in terms of overall volume. Miyazaki told us that, in terms of where the game takes place, it's a brand new area of a brand new map which includes a structure similar to what you find in the base game, with field areas, legacy dungeons, and other dungeons of various scale. The map is going to be huge. In Miyazaki's words, in terms of pure surface area, you're going to be faced with something larger even than Limgrave in the base game. FromSoft has also developed its approach to field design. Concerning the world, Miyazaki told us that while the overall structure is the same, while we have these open field areas, we have the legacy dungeon areas, and the general divide between these areas is quite distinct. This time, we wanted to go more in depth, he said, and bring a more dense and richer level design, which brings these types of layout together a little more seamlessly. So there won't be, hopefully, as distinct a divide between these areas this time. There, of course, will be large open areas. There, of course, will be legacy dungeons, but we've also experimented with something a little more in between these as well, to bring up more diverse gameplay experiences. Further, there will be over 10 new boss fights, plus plenty of new weapons, new equipment, and new skills to find. And 8 new weapon categories have been added to account for the new weapon types, which begs the question, what could they possibly be? Anyway, ideas for the DLC began to form around the end of Elden Ring's development, as there were remaining ideas that were clearly not going to fit in and would make more sense as DLC. Development then began around the time updates and patches for the base game had begun to settle down. Expansions for previous FromSoft games are notorious for upping the difficulty, Bloodborne's The Old Hunters especially. When we asked about the difficulty spike in light of The Old Hunters, Miyazaki stated that in terms of raw power meters and difficulty level, you could say Shadow of the Erdtree is on a similar footing with the endgame of Elden Ring. As to our general approach to the level of challenge, this has not changed from how we approached the base game. A new element of progression unique to this DLC area has also been implemented, which further heightens player freedom to walk away, level up and come back later, though the general approach to the level of the challenge has not changed one bit. Miyazaki explained that we wanted to provide these challenging encounters and these menacing threats, and in order to do that, we wanted to give the player a lot of freedom of approach. We wanted them to feel free about how they chose and when they chose to approach and tackle these hardships. And I think Malenia was one major example in the base game. She is an extremely tough boss battle, but she's also optional. So, players who look for that sort of challenge in our games will find a challenge on equal footing in the DLC as well. On the challenge FromSoft games provide, and the challenge Shadow of the Erdtree will definitely subject us to, Miyazaki explained how the FromSoft game's famous difficulty level has a much deeper meaning to him than simply hard for hard's sake. I think as a theme that those elements of hardship and that feeling of accomplishment simply has value as an experience, he said. As a player and as a person, I think this is not something that can be easily achieved or replicated in our lives, and I think it's something that carries with it inherent risk. In other media, especially, it's difficult to replicate that hardship and accomplishment, and I think that therein is the appeal and the value of FromSoft games. Of course, it can be felt in parts of other media, but in terms of that risk and reward and that sense of accomplishment that you feel with the act of play, I think that's very unique to games, and I think it's very powerful. And, of course, we just had to ask Miyazaki if Shadow of the Erdtree will again include a poison swamp. In a word, yes, he said. But this was actually a point of introspection for me after creating the base game. It was only after creating it that I realised I really like to create poison swamps. And this was a little place of introspection and reflection for me, so maybe when players reach the poison swamp in the DLC, they too will feel a little bit of this retrospection. Shadow of the Erdtree will be released across all platforms on the 21st of June, but before you go, Miyazaki did have something to say about the Bloodborne remake we are all gagging for. Miyazaki discussed with us the possibility of a Bloodborne remake and the benefits of waiting for new hardware on which to revisit the beloved PlayStation 4 classic. It is a title we hold very dear just as much as our fans, Miyazaki told Eurogamer when questioned about the possibility of a Bloodborne remake. It does make me very happy to see that there are still so many people passionate about it. But would a remake benefit from newer hardware to make the release worthwhile? FromSoftware's Demon's Souls, for example, was remade as a PS5 launch title after originally launching on PS3. A double console generation leap that meant the re-release felt more significant. I think having new hardware is definitely a part of what gives these remakes value, Miyazaki said. Things you weren't able to achieve on previous generations of hardware, ways you weren't able to render specific expressions, new hardware sometimes makes it possible. However, I wouldn't say that's the be-all and end-all, Miyazaki continued. I think purely from a user perspective, modern hardware also allows more players to appreciate all the games. And so, it ends up being a simple reason, but as a fellow player, I think that accessibility is important. I think that can be the driving force between bringing an old game to a new platform. Whether a Bloodborne remake eventually sees the light of day, regardless of whether it may arrive on either PS5 or PS6, Miyazaki said he was very happy to see so many passionate fans calling for a Bloodborne remake to happen. Miyazaki apologised for being unable to say anything more specific about remaking the PS4 exclusive, but said he was thrilled at the game's continued response. Put simply, it makes me very happy to see because it's a title with a lot of specific memories, both for me and the staff who worked on it, he said. And when we see those passionate voices in the community, of course it makes us feel thrilled. It makes us feel very fortunate to have that and to have those memories. FromSoft does carefully consider what it wants to make, so if a Bloodborne remake is on the cards, it sounds like they feel no pressure to add anything that may mimic features in other titles just because they've been successful. We don't feel any particular pressure to continue making the same thing, said Miyazaki. What I feel is that when creating that kind of environment, or with that kind of initiative to create something because it's been successful, or because it's succeeded in the past, that generally doesn't go very well, he told us. What we have seen is that players seem to enjoy our games, and so they're giving us the chance to continue making what we enjoy and what we like. And it helps us to not have that feeling of being trapped. If players continue to enjoy our games, we will continue to make them in the way that we like. We will just have to wait and see then if a Bloodborne remake is on the cards. And that's everything we found out from Hidetaka Miyazaki of FromSoft about the Elden Ring DLC Shadow of the Erdtree, coming to your veins and mine on the 21st of June 2024. What are you most excited for about the DLC, and did anything from this interview surprise you? Let me know in the comments, and a massive thank you to Ed Nightingale for sharing his interview with me, Zoe Delahunty Light, so I in turn can share it with you. As time goes on and we get more details about Shadow of the Erdtree, you can bet that beautiful ass of yours that I'll be giving you updates, so if that sounds like something you'd want to watch, feel free to subscribe to Eurogamer and drop a like on this video, as that gives me an indication of whether more Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree content is desired, as I suspect it is. Thanks so much for choosing to spend your time with me, and now I am going to go and gaze lovingly at Rani, so I'll see you folks next time.